5 times 20. You see, I get 5 times 20 equals to 100. Let me click on this again. 13 minus 40. I get 30 minus 40 is minus 27. But watch what happens when I say, I love pizza. You see, I get this error. The expression, I love pizza, could not be evaluated. Perhaps it is not a mathematical expression. Hey there guys, I am Clement, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a vocal calculator using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you're interested in this kind of content, please leave a like and please subscribe. Okay, so to begin, make sure you're at your code editor. Right here I'm using Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever code editor of your choice to make this. And as you can see, I already have my files here, my HTML file, my JavaScript file, and my style.css file, right? And they are all empty. So basically, we're going to be making a vocal calculator. And what this means is whenever I speak to my browser, right? I speak an equation to my browser and it gives me the answer to that equation. So if I say 2 plus 2, it gives me 4. And so on and so forth. This is limited to basic calculations for now, but you can also expand it to more complex calculations and such. So without further ado, let us go ahead and start writing the first lines of code. Okay, to begin here, just a quick note, I'm using Emmet. Emmet is installed by default with Visual Studio Code. So I can do stuff like this. If I press the exclamation mark and press tab, it generates this dummy code here that I can edit how I see fit. So I'm just going to change this to a vocal calculator. Right. So what else? Yeah. So I'm going to create a couple stuff, right? A couple containers here. So I'm going to be using Emmet type formatting. So I'm going to say dot. I'm going to create a class that's a class called container. And inside of this class that's called container, I'm going to create a class that's called role. And instead of this class that's called role, I'm going to create a class that's called a div that's called circle button, right? And inside of this div, I'm going to create a p tag, right? If I press the tab button, you see it generates everything successfully for me, just the way I want it, right? You can choose to write this without typing, Emmet's syntax, but this just generally speeds up development. So inside here, I'm just gonna write tap to speak. So basically, I'm gonna be clicking on a button, on a circle button in this case, and whenever I say something, it evaluates what I say. So we're gonna be using a speech recognition API. I'll show you guys more on that when we get to the JavaScript aspect of things. All right, so that is all for the HTML. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. What's next for us is to just style this up a bit. And so that we can see what's going on actually, I'm gonna right click this and click on open with live server. Live server is a Visual Studio Code extension that you can find if you go to the extension part and search for live server. So if you really want to follow along with me, you should be using Visual Studio Code. Basically, live server just helps for quick reloads whenever you save your project. So I'm just gonna right click this and click open with live server, and then you see I get everything loaded in real time for me. Awesome. So let me move to the CSS part of the project. Okay, I'm in style.css now, but before I go to style.css, let me bring CSS in. I'm gonna use the link tag, and this is going to help me to locate style.css. Awesome. Save this. No change here because obviously we have no styles. So let's go ahead and start writing styles. So the first style I want to do is I want to give a general style, and right, I'm going to give a box sizing of border box, and I'm going to give a margin of 0 pixels all around, a padding of 0 pixels all around, and finally a font family of sans serif. So basically I'm just giving some default styling so that we don't need to style every single individual element that has a default padding or a default margin or is not of the border box sizing. Okay, so as you can see, I have a container div here. I want to tell that container div how it should look like. So I'm going to say dot container to capture to select the container class, and I'm going to say give this a margin of 20 pixels, top and bottom, then auto, left and right to center it basically on the page. Give this a padding of 5 pixels and 14 pixels, and give this a max width. I want it to have a max width of 1,000 pixels so that it doesn't totally go too wide. Okay, then for the circle button, I want to style it. It's gonna have a bunch of styles just to make it look presentable. The first style is height 200 pixels. It should have a height of 20 pixels. It should have a width of the same pixel length, and the cursor should be a pointer. I want to be able to point at it, right? You can see the style is already coming up. Not too bad. Give us a display of flex, and give this a justify content of center and an align items of center. And what else? I think give us a color of white, a font size of 20 pixels, a box shadow, or let me just give this a background first so that it can come out better. A background color of RGBA 220 2060 and 0.842. I think this should be good enough. Then awesome, it's coming up well. And I'm going to give this a box shadow now. And it's going to have a box shadow of 1 pixel, 4 pixels, I think 4 pixels. Okay, 4 pixels, 14 pixels, and RGB 247, 40, 82. I think that should be good enough. So that's it. There are a couple more styles to add. First of all, to make it look like a circle, I'll give this a border radius of 50%, so that we get the whole circle configuration going on there. Then I'm gonna give this a border just to make it look a little prettier. 10 pixel solid crimson. Cool. And I'm gonna be adding some animation to this, so I'm gonna give this a transition of 0.4 seconds is what I usually give it. Awesome. So I have everything. I think I should style the row first, but I'll get to styling the row. The row is where the circle button is sitting inside. Yeah, so let me just style the hover. On hover, I want to transform and give this a scale of 1.1 to make it a little bigger on hover, right? And also I want to give it a transition as well so that it hovers seamlessly, right? For us. Awesome. So if I hover over it, you see that it has this hover animation. Exactly what I want. All right, so next I'm going to style the row so that they can be centered properly. So the row, basically, as you can see in the design, the circle button is sitting right inside the row. So I'm going to say, what else? I'm going to say display of flex, right? And a margin top of 20 pixels and a justify content of center. And lest I forget, this something else I should have added to the markup, the list. So basically the way I want it designed is when I speak, when I tap on this to speak, it should bring out the whole mathematical equation at the bottom in the form of a list of equations, right? So to do that, essentially, I will need to be able to have a list of items here. So I'm going to create a UL, an unordered list. And I'm just going to list as empty first. I'm going to style the list so that you can see the styling perfectly. Awesome. So I want to style the unordered list. So I'll say the list should have a pattern. This is the unordered list right now. Should have a pattern of 20 pixels, and the list style, of course, should be none. Also, I want to style the li inside of the unordered list. Give us a margin top of, let me see, I think 10 pixels and padding of 15 pixels, just to give it a little spacing. Then the background will be a really light gray, or I can just start off with triple E. That should be good enough. Awesome. Let me try and add a list here. I'll just say 2 plus 2 equal 4 to see how it'll look like. And you see we have this nice gray here. Not bad. I'm going to comment this out so that nothing is there to begin with, and then when we tap to speak, we then see the equations coming out. Awesome. So what have we achieved so far? So far, we've been able to have a complete HTML markup and a complete CSS styling. So I want to start off with the interesting part, which is the JavaScript, of course. And to work with JavaScript, I need to bring in the JavaScript file. So I just need a script tag here, and I need to link it to index.js. And of course, I am putting the script tag just below the closing body tag so that loading this file doesn't lead to a slow markup load. So this is always advisable to put your script tag in this position. Awesome. So let me go to index.js to test whether or not it's properly connected. So I'm going to just come to the log, hello world, or anything really, and save this, and let me inspect and go to console so you can see that it's properly connected, because I am seeing hello world being rendered here. Awesome. So let's start off with the JavaScript code. I think basically the first thing is I want to capture elements, right? So to capture, the first thing I want to capture really is the circle button itself. So I'm just gonna say const circle button is equal to document dot get the query selector rather, and I'm gonna get the circle button class, right? And I also want to get the list, the unordered list, of course. This should be document the query selector, and it's called list. Awesome. So I have all the major things I want to select. I want to start adding event listeners to this. Listeners, if I can spell, right? So I usually like commenting my code so that people can understand. So here we are selecting relevant elements, and now we are adding our event listeners, right? We basically need just one event listener for the circle button, of course, and I'm going to use the add event listener method, and I'm going to listen for a click event, right? And this the function here, I'm just going to call the function, I'm just going to name it run speech recognition, right? I haven't created this function declaration yet. I'm going to declare the function now. run speech recognition. So let me just save the code to see that everything is working well. No errors. No errors. So we are doing well so far. All right then. So I guess the first thing I want to write in this function is, basically we are going to be using the speech recognition API that's native to Chrome, native to JavaScript basically. So there's no need for any external imports for this. So how do we bring in that speech recognition class? I basically say const recognition is equal to new WebKit speech recognition. Awesome. And you can learn all about the speech recognition API by just simply searching speech recognition API, or not, maybe not API, maybe JavaScript. And I think you can get it in the mozilla.org docs. You can read through it. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here, but I'll basically just take you through the easy parts, not the easy parts, the major important parts, right? They're not necessarily easy, but when I'm done with it, you'll soon come to understand how, well, generally understandable it is, right? I'll be as clear as possible. So now that I have instantiated my speech recognition class, I'm exposed to the methods that this recognition instance has. So the first important method that it has is the onStart method. So I'm going to write recognition.onStart. So this basically allows me to fire a set of functions, right, when the listening process starts off, right? So I'm just going to make this equal to a function that's going to do some stuff, right? But I realized that in my CSS file, I haven't yet created a way to add an indication for when I click on this tap to speak button. So I want to create basically a class that will be activated whenever I click on this tap to speak button. The class will be appended to the circle button, right? That'll become clearer in a few minutes, but let me just create that class right now. I'm going to call this class listening, as to indicate that the recognition software is listening to our voice. And I'm going to give this an animation property, and this is going to be, I'm going to name the animation pulse, because I want the button to be pulsating when it's listening, right? I want it to be pulsating, and I'm going to make it last for 1 second, and I want to make it infinite. Awesome. So then I have to basically define what the listening animation actually is, and it's going to be in a keyframe. So I'm going to create a keyframe called pulse, and at 0% and at 100%, I want it to have a transform of scale 1, right? But at 50%, I want it to have a transform of, that's the circle button right now, scale 1.1. What this means is when it's at 0%, make it move seamlessly. Let it maintain a scale 1, but it's gonna move from 0 to 50%, then to 100%. This is just a short form of writing this. I can basically just take this out and write this in the long version, right? Let me clear this comma here. I can just say 100%, then it should be transform scale 1. This does the exact same thing as the previous shorthand I wrote, but I generally like writing shorter code, so I rather not write more text where it's not necessary. So I'm just going to take this back to make it here, because both 100% and 0% are sharing the same properties here, right? So let me just save this. Awesome. And I'm gonna come here and say, okay, on start, I want it to basically modify our DOM. So I'm gonna say I want the circle button to then have an inner HTML that says, that's gonna have a p tag. It says, that says listening, right? It's gonna have a p tag that says listening. But this is not all we want to do. We also want to then add a listening class, right? I'm gonna add circle button, right? And how do I add classes in JavaScript? I say .class list, then .add. So I'm gonna add the, let me see how I spelled it so that it can be the exact same thing. I'm gonna copy this listening from the style.css file and then paste it right here. Awesome. So when it starts off, when the recognition process begins, I want the circle button to have an inner HTML of listening and to have a class appended to the class list called listening. Awesome. I also want to add another important method, which is on speech end. So I can say recognition dot on speech end, right? This should be also equal to a function, and this function fires when the API has detected that your speech, your command to it is ending or has ended, basically. So this runs, and basically what I want to do here is I want to revert back to the initial state, right? And to do that, I'm going to say circle button dot inner HTML is equal to tap to speak. Basically the what is there right now, I'm going to revert it back to what's here right now. And then let me just copy this code so I don't waste too much time. I'm going to then remove this listening class from the circle button class list. Instead of saying add here, I'll say remove. And then finally, one very important thing to do is to say recognition.stop, because it needs to be stopped after it, in this our particular use case, after we have said something, and it detects like a 2-3 second pause. That's when this function runs. So, yeah, to make this function start in the first place, I need to call recognition.start. That's when the recognition.stop becomes important, because if you start it, you have to stop it when the speech ends. In this case, when there's like a 3 to 4 second pause of sorts. Awesome. Then the final method I'm going to expose you guys to, and there are many more methods. You can go read here in the documentation. There are many more methods. But the final method I'm going to talk about is .result, which is on result rather, which is the most important method. It captures what has been said from audio to text, right? From speech to text. So I'm going to say recognition dot on result. It's also going to be a function that fires when it detects a result has been created from your speech. So I'm going to say I'm going to create a variable called transcript, and this should be equal to, and also this function here, the method rather, passes in a parameter here, an event parameter that has certain properties that are of use to us. So the event parameter has a results, right? And to get the transcript of what has been said, which is the actual text of what has been said, it's inside an array that is inside another array, and then we have the transcript object. But basically, before I even talk about this transcript part, let's just console.log the object so we can see everything that it gives us. Let me just console.log the event rather, and save this. There are no errors so far. Then let's test this software so far and see what we get. hey there, friend. So what happened now is I said, hey there, friend. And when I clicked on it, you saw it changed to listening, and then it started to hear my voice. And when I said, hey there, friend, it picked it up, and it waited for like 2 seconds to 3 seconds when I stopped talking. And it finally decided to run this on speech end function, right? So on speech start was when I click the button. On speech end was when I stopped talking for a second. And then when I stopped talking and the speech ended, it also asynchronously compiled the results to log to the console here. So let's see what we get. So you can see that we have the event here, and inside the event is a results property, which is an array, which is inside another array. And then we then see the transcript here, hey there, friend, as I said in the first place. And the confidence value is 98.7.8%. So we can see that this is working generally. And all we really need to do is now say, okay, let us display it on the screen, right? And also I want to make it such that I can convert this into a sort of equation of sorts. So, okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to grab the transcript, right? This is the transcript. This value here, I don't really need the confidence. Maybe you can use the confidence for your application needs, but for now, I'm just going to grab the transcript. Then I want to do something right now. I want to say, okay, let me evaluate the transcript to see if it's an equation that can be evaluated. And just to test how equations are formatted here, let me just say an equation like, I don't know, 5 plus 6. Let me tap to speak. 10 plus 22. So I said 10 plus 22, and let's see what it gives me. Let me go to results, 0, 0. You see, I get 10 plus 22. So you can see that this JavaScript API formats your text prioritizing a mathematical structure. So if you're saying an easy equation like 10 multiplied 22 or 10 times 22, it actually transforms it to a mathematical equivalent. So that's why it's such an interesting software to make a vocal calculator out of. So how am I going to make it a vocal calculator? I'm going to basically, I'm going to first create a variable called let results is equal to eval results, eval transcript, pardon me. And then I'm going to say, I want to append the results and basically the entire equation to the list element right here, this list element. I'm going to append a list to this, a list containing the entire mathematical expression. So let me just do that. Let me just say list.innerHTML is equal to, and I'm going to prepend it basically. I'm going to say this should be a list, right? That contains the transcript, right? The transcript basically in this case is our mathematical question to the software, right? And let me just quickly close this so that I don't forget later. Then basically the transcript is equal to the result that I get from it, right? All nice and neat. But then I'm going to add plus the previous inner HTML, and that will be good. But there's a problem with this code already. What if this doesn't translate as a mathematical expression? What if the transcript string here doesn't translate as a mathematical expression? And what eval does, eval evaluates a mathematical expression that's in the form of a string and then sees if it could give an actual result, right? If it's not an expression that can be evaluated, hence the name eval, it's going to throw an error saying that it cannot evaluate this expression. So how do we catch that error in this case? We simply have a try catch block, right? And then we can just grab the result and the listed inner HTML logic and put in the try block. And then for the error, I want to do a couple of things here. I want to say, you can actually add your own UI UX to this, but I'm just going to use a simple alert function and say that something went wrong. And I'll say the expression, then I'll say, basically I want this in template strings so that I can easily concatenate my variables properly. The expression, then I'll write the expression here, dollar curly braces, the expression transcript, right, could not be evaluated. Perhaps it is not a mathematical expression. Awesome. Okay, so what else? Yeah, so basically that's just it. You know, if it doesn't evaluate properly, right, it's gonna throw an error. If it's not a proper mathematical expression, it's going to throw an error, and the catch block is going to run. Let me just console.log that error so I can see what error it is exactly. Then we can test it out. Awesome. So I'm just gonna say 5 times 20. You see, I get 5 times 20 equals to 100. Let me click on this again. 13 minus 40. I get 30 minus 40 is minus 27. But watch what happens when I say I love pizza. You see, I get this error. The expression I love pizza could not be evaluated. Perhaps it is not a mathematical expression. So basically, that's it. There's nothing so huge about this project. It's a really simple project, but it can be expanded to so many important things. You can make this more than just a calculator. You can make it anything that is voice controlled in your software, and it can really be scaled up to anything you can imagine, really. So thanks again for watching. If you got into the end of the video, you are a hero. Thank you for the supports to the channel. We are still growing, so every like, every subscription you give me will go a very long way. Thank you so much for watching.